proclaiming the Qing Dynasty on June 1st, 2026. And well, quickly we can see it extends into Russia, extends into Central Asia, extends into South Asia. And well, at this point, a big military buildup is done by India, the Philippines, Vietnam, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and the United States, with them planning for war. And well, welcome to today's video, and let's get into it. And well, with the anti-Qing alliance, which is part South Korea, Japan, India, Australia, and the United States, Philippines, Vietnam, how do they match with this? Well, the Qing Dynasty has more than what I'm saying, because it, well, only could include Mongolia, Taiwan, and China to get the numbers. So the manpower, about 5.75 million, whereas, well, the anti-Qing alliance has 15.9 million manpower. The air power is 4,000 for China, and well, it's 19,000 approximately for the anti-Qing alliance, with about 7,688 tanks for the Qing Dynasty, with 13,496 tanks for the anti-Qing alliance. With armored vehicles, China has 163,938, and the anti-Qing alliance for them have 714,667. And while for self-propelled artillery, the Qing Dynasty has 3,978, with the anti-Qing alliance having 5,551. For artillery, the Qing alliance is 1,000, the anti-Qing alliance is 11,059. The Qing Dynasty has 2,984 rocket artillery. Meanwhile, the anti-Qing alliance has 1,935. For the Navy in the Qing Dynasty, it's 851, whereas for the anti-Qing alliance, it's 1,385. And then for the labor force, as you can expect, it's about the same. 791 million versus 982 million. Pretty close. And well, a major escalation happens with a war on the Qing Dynasty beginning. And well, for the Qing Dynasty, after India, the anti-Qing alliance goes to war, well, they get joined by Pakistan, North Korea, Cambodia, and Laos, as they want to help uphold the Qing Dynasty. So let's see the map Dynasty has with North Korea, Laos, Cambodia, and Pakistan. I got some more stats about approximate military numbers, with a manpower of about 9.6 million, an air power of 6,388, 15,433 tanks, and for armored vehicles, they have 213,273. For self-propelled artillery, they have 6,000. For artillery, they have 4,736. Rocket artillery, 5,631. And well, for the Navy, they have 1,206. And well, for labor, the amount of labor force they have is 900 million now, which we can see these numbers equal out, but it gets even worse for this team. With a quick and efficient advance into South Korea. Yes, South Korea. Sorry, South Korea. And well, they lose Seoul, and well, in 3 months, they're like this. And without a UN force, they're gone. Well, actually, that was China. But anyways. And well, with Vietnam quickly falling into China's hands. Well, with Vietnam falling, despite a heavy resistance at this point. And well, now it's down to India, Japan, the Philippines, and the United States. This has greatly weakened this alliance. With Pakistan and China launching offensives into India. Well, not China, the Qing Dynasty. Yes, the Qing Dynasty. With them moving south and quickly connecting with forces in India. With India being overran, basically, at this point. With American forces, Japanese, and Australian forces beginning to arrive. with India standing alone pretty much at this point. And well, what do they do now? Okay, they decide to quickly invade the Philippines, see how far they can get. With them having a major success, and while this becomes, as Manila falls, this becomes the second and third major defeat for the United States as the Philippines collapsed into themselves. Well, now it's India, Australia, and the United States fighting, and Japan. With an attempt to kick China back and move forces around the front, India decides to invade China. Yes, they invade China. They invade China from, this is the eastern part. Well, in the west, they also manage a tiny counter-offensive, but this becomes a big failure. As they start moving even further south into this area, taking big chunks of land, and then they move south towards Mumbai. With them encircling Mumbai, Mumbai falls, they've already taken Delhi, they've basically destroyed India. And while these forces end up having to be not retreated, they get pushed back. And while with China attempting the hardest maneuver, moving through mountains, this takes them quite a long time over the course of a few months. Now this is probably about maybe February 2033. Not 2033, that's wrong. 2029, and they move in. Well, they quickly move into this area by June 16th, 2029. This is starting to collapse, India is. And this is when they start their first attack on Japan, with them landing in northern parts of Japan. And it unfortunately becomes an embarrassing defeat again. With defeat after defeat for this alliance, it doesn't look good. With China trying to get Australia to leave the war. Failing miserably, but yes, they still advance. And then they advance in from the north to get into, not Calcutta. What's the city called? Something city. Yes, I'm going to call it something city. I forget the name somehow. Kolkata, maybe. Yeah, Kolkata. Well, in the north, India falls. And with the communists in Kerala, which, yeah, why are communists revolting? I don't know. I don't have a clue. But we'll color them green, with the Kerala communists becoming rebels. With them quickly taking over from Kerala and taking over the south. Try to become the most developed area. And well, then across the nation, communist support skyrockets. Not like the Qing Dynasty will want this, but the Kerala People's Republic's probably just fine. With Australia and the United States realizing one of them will get invaded if we don't stop soon. But they realize, yeah, let's try to keep Japan out of the control of the evil nations. While they land in Japan, moving through mountains, eventually they take over Tokyo and surrounding islands. And while at this point, Japan realizes it's doomed to be a Qing puppet. And while at this point, a peace treaty is signed. And while it was a major upset for them. In the peace treaty, with the North becoming a puppet and the South becoming the Kerala People's Republic. And while Vietnam got partitioned by Cambodia taking the South, the center went to, Laos, and the North went to China, with North Korea annexing South Korea, and this part falling apart, which is Japan, into a puppet state. And while at this point, Australia and America have just witnessed a big embarrassment. And they have been completely embarrassed. They had the advantage, yet they still managed to lose. Well, the Qing Dynasty does what no one expected. They invade Russia. And well, during this time, Ukraine takes the opportunity to take back Crimea, which is demanded by China. And they say, not China, the Qing Dynasty, which is China. And well, I got a few stats about the Russian military. Well, for manpower, they got 3,570. 3.57 million manpower. For air power, they have 4.3 thousand. And for tanks, they got 5.8 thousand. And for, well, armored vehicles, they have 132,000. For self-propelled artillery, they got 5,000. For artillery, they got 8,000. Rocket artillery, they got 3,000. Navy, they got 414. In labor, they got 72 million labor force. And well, why is this happening? Why are they invading Russia, you may be asking? Well, because the Qing Dynasty doesn't like Russia. And well, the collapse of this union is inevitable, as the forces move into Siberia, seizing oil resources, any resource in Siberia, with Russia failing to stop this, as Russia starts shrinking in size, with China controlling more and more of it. And moving to the Ural Mountains, a stalemate happens for a bit as they cross the Ural Mountains, and their advance is just as rapid as before. And now they're into Russia, so let's see the Battle of Russia, which is really the Battle of Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Volgograd, and such on. So let's go to these battles, with the Battle of St. Petersburg being the first one, with St. Petersburg falling, and at this point, the same point, China launches a land invasion of here, as the forces from here head into Moscow, with the Battle of Moscow beginning. Well, yeah. And then at this point, China decides it's time to go to war with Ukraine at the same time, as they're still trying to take out Russia. Yes, this is a crazy spin, with the Qing supporting Ukraine's actions in taking Crimea, but now going against it. As, well, not to erase it. No, we don't want to erase a man. They come in and move into Volgograd, and then they move south and start seizing the Caucasus. And at this point, with Moscow gone all the major cities, it collapses. But, well, let's just put this one way. They aren't done expanding. They are trying to expand their Russian state now. And well, this is not good, is it? They went way too far, with Ukraine falling very fast, Belarus falling very fast. And at this point, let's see the peace treaty of the Qing Dynasty, with China now controlling all of Russia's resources. And then they make a puppet of Russia, but it extends into Belarus and Ukraine. I'm sure the West likes this. And while America is trying to fuel Europe and the Middle East into war against this, and the Kurilish People's Republic into taking that back. And well, that's pretty much all for today's video. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Wild Mapper out, but not until you subscribe.